Part of the problem because government's too big, it's out of control, we spend too much, and we have a foreign policy that we need to revamp. We need to change it dramatically and quit fighting so many wars and come home is what we need to do. Usually when I talk about foreign policy and fighting all these wars that are undeclared, and I always argue the case that we should declare wars and get the people behind it. If we have to go to war, make the declaration, fight them, win them, and get them over with. And already this war has been going on a lot longer than World War II. You'd think we could win the war in Iraq in a shorter period of time than World War II. But there is one thing I'm going to mention here because I forgot to mention in the other one. Sometimes you forget a few things. But let me tell you one thing, that when we go to war, they go to war, overtax and overborrow, then of course they print money and inflate the currency, and that's very destructive. But there's one other thing they do. They place this burden on young people. And there's a threat this war is going to spread in the Middle East. And all we'd have to have is an incident over there that looks like one of our ships had been attacked and Americans were killed, and you know what I'm afraid of? And that will get the people in war fever again. Right now the American people want us to come home and end the war. But you can imagine, and some of those things have happened by accident and contrived over the years. Just think of the Gulf of Tonkin resolution. It was a contrived event. So I fear that. But the one thing that I am adamantly opposed, because once governments get in over their head, is they resort to calling up young people. So I'm positively opposed to ever reinstating the military draft. I have over the years, as many of you know, emphasized the importance of the Constitution. Constitution was not and is not a perfect document, but still it was the best, or could be the best if we would only follow it. And we've gotten ourselves into trouble, whether it has to do with foreign policy or domestic policy, monetary policy, because we don't follow it. So therefore, we don't have to create something brand new and different. Some countries don't have the traditions that we have. So we have to just wake up and say, look, we've gone in the wrong direction. Let's come to common sense and do the right thing. Which means, why don't we only send people to Washington who are dedicated and are believable when they take an oath of office to uphold the Constitution? This has been the biggest problem, because so many, I think before I ever ran for Congress, it used to frustrate me. I'd support candidates and they'd go up there and they'd just act like the rest of them. And we have this, and I've supported individuals off and on over the year. Oh yeah, I'm with you on this and this. And you can tell within 1 week. Within 1 week, also the leadership comes and say, oh, well, we need your vote. Are you going to be a team player or not? Being a team player in Washington and maintaining power is much more important to them than obeying the oath of office. And there is the problem. The problem is the lack of integrity of so many individuals who go to Washington. And then, you know, we had a mandate in a way, the Republican Party, you know, with the election of 2000, the House and the Senate and the presidency. You know, what do? All they did was worry about, well, we don't want to lose it, so we better, you know, neutralize our enemies and the opposition, and we better act more like Democrats. So they started to, and they lost all credibility. And look, the Republicans lost last year, lost control, and right now there are over 30 Republicans not running this year. Nobody thinks the Republican Party is going to pick up seats. They're expecting to lose a lot more. And in many ways, it's because we as Republicans and the individuals in charge just didn't do what they said. So this is really what we need to do. But, you know, this election is very, very important, and I hope we do very well. It can send a powerful message, but the truth is, it's going to take a generation to change this thing around. What I would like to see is cutting enough spending overseas from this $1 trillion budget we have from overseas, saving hundreds of billions of dollars, cut on the deficit, actually be able to take care of some of the people who are totally dependent here at home, but offer your generation a chance to go through a transition and get out of the system, get out of Social Security, and get out of government medical care. With this, we do have to look at monetary policy, and the founders understood it. They didn't want inflation. They did not want paper money. But you know, whether it's the tax system or the monetary system or the regulatory system or whatever, It depends on how you answer one question. And the only question that should be asked and answered in order to know what to do is, what should the role of government be? And if the role of government should be to take care of us from cradle to grave, or tell us how to act better and to regulate our behavior, even though it only affects ourselves, or we're supposed to tell the rest of the world how to live. If that's the kind of government, well, you really don't have to do much because that's the kind you have and it's not going to change very much. But if you think it's a bad idea, which I think it's a very bad idea, and I've been trying to change that direction, but then there's a big job. But let me just close with a word of encouragement. I was very reluctant to do this a year ago, because I didn't know how you would respond. I didn't know how many people would remember the days when we did actually have more respect for freedom and less dependency on the government. But in this last year, it's been astounding. I mean, the number of young people have joined through the meetup groups, the internet. I think people have come to the recognition that our government isn't doing a very good job. Whether it's fighting the war, running the welfare state, or taking care of Katrina victims, I mean, they fail at it. Maintaining the value of the dollar, they just fail. So they see the failure, at the same time they realize that something has to be done. So the young people especially have joined in, and they say they do, and they want a change. So that, plus those, there was a much larger group of people who knew and remembered about it. Those were the people we call the remnant. The remnant, you know, you can't count and you don't know where they are. It was huge. It was much bigger than I ever dreamed, and it just seems like it's getting bigger all the time. And
yes, sir.
Everybody knows this movement will continue. We cannot silence this group now, our group, who wants more freedom and less liberty. And they ask, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to be involved in the best way I can do, and I'm going to do my best to keep people together, doing everything conceivable, getting involved in party politics and running for office and supporting candidates and raising money, all these things. But really, ultimately, it's up to every individual. Every individual has a different role to play, and your role is different than mine and somebody else's. But ultimately, it is very important that we understand the issues. If you don't understand how the marketplace works, or why monetary policy is important, and the tradition of a non-interventionist foreign policy, those are the things that we have to know and understand. And when we do that, believe me, it can be turned around. It isn't that tough. If we don't restore liberty, it is going to be very tough. We're going to see the deterioration of our freedoms continuously, as well as the deterioration of our economy. But if we do the right things, I think in a year or so we can be back up on our feet again. And therefore, there's every reason to be optimistic about it. And it's not like we're suffering in the Soviet system, where the traditions weren't anything like ours. But I can relay to you that the Spirit is alive and well, and the number of people who have joined and been enthusiastic about what is happening, there's every reason to believe that we can do this. So I thank all of you very much for joining in and interested enough to come, and also to be engaged in these next 2 weeks in particular, because we can. To do a good job in the next 2 weeks, early voting starts tomorrow. We have an election in 2 weeks. If we do well here, it will send a message, and that is what we need. We need to let the rest of the country know that liberty is alive and well in Texas. And thank you.